Connor! We got 2 intro videos today, people.
The Wildlife Act Fund is dedicated to the conservation of Africa's endangered species, including the African wild dog, cheetah, and rhino. The fund focuses on 3 key areas: wildlife monitoring, anti-poaching, and community outreach. Wildlife monitoring answers the basic questions of where these animals are and how they are doing. It also provides critical scientific data, including population demographics, movement patterns, and disease outbreaks. The Wildlife Act Fund advances monitoring efforts by providing tracking equipment and operational training needed for effective monitoring programs across Africa. The Wildlife Act Fund is also involved in anti-poaching efforts. Poaching is one of the biggest threats facing endangered species. Some species like rhino are the specific target of poachers. Other species like wild dog and cheetah get caught as bycatch in the snares set by poachers hunting for meat. The fund develops measures and technologies such as rhino horn implants and anti-snare collars that help protect these animals. But in order to reduce poaching, we can't rely on technology alone. We need to get local communities involved in understanding the environmental and economic value of wildlife conservation. The Wildlife Act Fund sends outreach staff into local communities to provide education and training. By working in partnership with these communities, we can reduce the impact of poaching. We can't simply pass this problem on to the next generation. If we don't act now, these glorious creatures will disappear forever.
I firmly believe that if we aren't able to push back and to try and showcase these animals in their natural environment, and that's where they should be, and that we should just allow them.
This is our guest today.
If we can't do that with an iconic species like the rhino, then it doesn't bode well for us as a human race and our interaction on this planet. We really need to wake up and acknowledge what we're doing and the way that we interact with the planet.
It's 10 years now since I started working with the rhinos, so sometimes you feel like they are part of your life or part of your family at home. I have a lot of stories with these animals.
Zama is our lead black rhino monitor. He really is an expert tracker.
We go out in the mornings. Sometimes we do have that tracking device which is helping us to find them easy. But if you don't have that, then you go looking for tracks. It's not only about finding tracks. Maybe the rock that's been kicked off from the trail. Sometimes if they've been wallowing, you see where they're walking, then they will leave the mud on the path. If you still find the dung is warm, then you know that you're close to the animals. Monitoring them, it's more like trying to find out their behavior. You need to be there to see what's been going on during the night. Try to get even closer just to see if the condition is fine. It is very important to educate people about the rhinos. Since we started, then we can see that change, and people are starting knowing what's going on around the game reserve.
So we're at the Shrezno Bomas. Shrezno is a special place because there were less than 50 white rhino left, and they were conserved in this space. These guys have been looking after rhino and caring for them for over a century now. Professionals, top of the game.
These animals here, they tell us of the sad reality that the rhinos are facing. Our game is to catch animals and translocate them as soon as possible. But we are finding ourselves having to keep animals over a period of 3 years. What happens is quite often is people will go for the females, then once they've shot their mother, the calf doesn't know where to go and they just leave it there to die. And on many occasions we've been lucky to go and retrieve the calves, bring them into the bomas, and we teach them to drink from the bottle. We start introducing the food and the solids to them, and after a year and a half we wean them from the milk, and then we put them into this rehab camp where they are able to find their own food and behave like a normal rhino. I mean, I never thought a few years down the line I'll be playing a mummy to them. With the amount of rhinos that get poached every year, there is a need to make sure that every single rhino that can be saved, we've got to save it. And it's not things that conservation have always budgeted for. The sponsorship that have come from Wildlife Act has been very, very enormous for us, and without them, we'd have really, really battled.
As Wildlife Act's developed, we've expanded that work to include a number of populations. We help out with the monitoring across a number of different reserves, feeding that information to keep track of the populations and to see how well that they're doing. To rehabilitate these animals from youngsters all the way through that you can release them into the wild, and that's the ultimate success, is to ensure that these animals continue to contribute to the wild population. There are huge steps that have been taken, collaborations that have been developed, and successes that we're seeing. There's definitely this global consciousness being developed around these poaching issues, and it doesn't take very long to learn and to love these animals. Come and spend time with us. Come and volunteer with us. Come and get involved. Learn about their amazing behaviors. We work with a number of other different species as well. Go and have a look at www.wildlifeact.com and sign up and come and join us.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Conservation Cast, not muted, big time. I'm sorry we are an hour late. There's a bit of a time zone difference. Simon is located in Botswana currently, and he had a lot of traveling yesterday. He spent 15 hours in a rover yesterday doing some research work. So he just got to his computer. Also, we did do a test call, and there may be some tech issues today that we're going to have to work through or put up with. We will see how it goes. Internet out there is not, doesn't seem like it's fantastic. Thank you for the $5. All right. Devil with the $5, Crow with the 10, Ranjan with 20, Crash and Burn with 10, and Conch with $27. Just so you know, the donations today are going into my PayPal, and then I'm sending it to them after. They don't have a PayPal account set up, unfortunately. So that's how that's happening today, but we've done lots of podcasts like that before. So if you make a donation and you see that or you get that receipt, just so you know, that's what's happening today. So we are talking to Simon Morgan, which I'm very excited about. Simon Morgan is the co-founder and executive trustee of Wildlife Act. And he is also a Black Rhino expert. Emlaw with the $10, Spiderland with the $10, Danza with the 25. Thank you so much. Conch, I appreciate that. He also works as associate director for conservation for Stanford University's program for conservation genomics. That probably doesn't sound familiar to you guys, but it is because we had this connection through Ellie Armstrong. Ellie Armstrong was one of our early guests on this podcast. Warber with the $20, a toe with $25. Thank you. Ellie Armstrong does conservation genomics with big cats, and she recommended Simon to me, and that's how we got connected. So they work together, which is wonderful. And Simon is also pretty much nomadic, so he moves between the U.S. and South Africa to work with these animals and to work with the organization itself. Wildlife Act, you guys saw it in the video, but they're conservationists. They do a lot of volunteer work. They do a lot of tracking and monitoring to save endangered species. They have programs for black rhinos, painted dogs, vultures, and cheetahs, elephants, lions, leopards, and hyenas out there. They promote monitoring and research, identify and develop programs with surrounding communities to support biodiversity conservation and socioeconomic development, which we've talked about a few times, especially with Diane Fossey Foundation. They do a really, really good job of that, or Diane Fossey Fund. It's a very important part of conservation that a lot of organizations miss. So we're talking to one of those today that realizes the importance of that and educating local communities, which is really exciting. And I'm really pleased that they're doing stuff like that. And they secure existing protected areas to support range expansion for African wildlife. So that is the organization. That's about Simon Morgan today. Hopefully all the tech stuff goes fine. I know it was 2 intro videos and I know we're about an hour late. So I told him I would call him at 3:15. My time, it is 3:11. There is no poll today because it's not really species specific. They do a lot of species out there, or they do a lot of species protection. So we're not going to do a poll, but there will be a quiz at the end of the podcast about the conversation that I have with Simon today. The quiz is curated by Chuck. 5 questions, 20 seconds per question. You guys know the drill. Koopa Steve with $77.77. Thank you so much. Also for today, so much of this podcast is my name isn't Mike with the $20. Thank you. So much of what makes this podcast cool is that you guys can ask as many questions as you want. I don't necessarily get to all those questions, but you can do #ask followed by your question, and it'll take it to a document, and I can ask Simon all those questions as we go. I'll have him introduce himself and the organization. Whatever questions you have to follow, feel free to ask. And yeah, I think that'll do it. Am I missing anything? There's no Quizlet for it. No cheaters. We good to go. Conservation Cast, once a month, last Friday of every month. It feels weird, doesn't it? It simultaneously feels like it's been forever and that we do this every week. Or that it's just like very natural. I don't know. But it's still happening. It's not the last Friday. Third Friday of every month. You're correct. Monkaroo, thank you for the $50. Monkaroo said, are you going to have a fundraiser? I should, but I don't have anything planned, so I don't know. All right. Are you guys ready? Jude Bracy with $50. Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to call up Simon, and I will be back in just a minute with him. See you in a sec. I'm very nervous about tech.
Hi, can you hear me?
It looks like it's loading. If this doesn't work, we can also go back to your phone.
I can see it says video connected. It says camera off. Just trying to see where are we here. Oh, here we go. Turn off camera. We're in. I can't see you.
Yeah, so you'll just be able to hear me, but once you get your camera on, they'll be able to see both of us.
Is on. I can see me.
That's weird. Oh, wait, I can see you too. Okay, hold on. This is on my end then. Good job. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Nice.
Okay. So I see through during the call.
Yeah, you'll just be able to hear me, but they can see both of us now, like you saw on the test call.
Okay, great.
Great. Well, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I am super, super glad that Ellie put us in connection here. This is exciting.
Great. Well, yeah, thanks for having me on, and hi to everybody, and excited to chat.
Yeah, we have about 1,000 people here so far, and we've raised $362 already, which is awesome. So if you want to introduce, if you want to introduce yourself and then tell us about Wildlife Act and your involvement, that would be great.
If we haven't even started, I was about to start doing handstands just to see how people react.
Oh, that'd be great. You're welcome to.
We'll leave that for later.
Okay.
Yeah, my name's Simon. I'm one of the co-founders of Wildlife Act. We started close on 13 years ago now. I think we're going to maybe share our 12-year impact report video that we put together.
Yes, I shared it already. They saw that.
Oh, cool. Okay, so everyone's seen that we're involved with endangered species is what we focus in on, and we're a group of 3 mates that got together and decided that wildlife monitoring and management in the Zululand area of South Africa was lacking in attention, was kind of at the bottom of the ladder of focal points. So we decided to provide a free service to protected area managers. So we essentially are contracted to spend time out in the field following and tracking endangered species, keeping tabs on the demographics of the population. So in other words, how many are there, how healthy are they, how many males, how many females, how many youngsters are they having every year, and then reporting that through to management, as well as kind of, if managers do something, we want to understand what impact or effect that has. So if we introduce a new pack of wild dogs, for example, into an area, it's really important to understand how well did that go. Have they settled in? Have they started reproducing with with other packs in the area? That type of thing. So we provide those insights and feedback to the management teams.
Yeah, and then you have a specialization in black rhinos or in rhinos overall?
Yeah, so I did my PhD on a population of black rhino that I don't think they liked me as much as what I kind of grew affection to them.
I have the same problem with birds.
They just keep on pecking or trying to peck your eyes out.
Yeah.
So I spent quite a bit of time up trees, and black rhino are they're interesting. So I don't know if the audience knows, but there's 5 species of rhino, and in Africa we got 2.
Okay.
There's a white rhino and a black rhino. So I focus in on the black rhino population. The difference between the white and the black population rhino are the white rhino are grazers, so they are eating grass, and they got a big wide mouth like a lawnmower, and they're just kind of bulk grazers going along and picking up a lot of grass. There's a black rhino, is also known as a hook-lip rhino, and it forages. It's kind of got a prehensile lip, almost like a little trunk, I guess, like a lip that can grab branches, pull them in, and eats a lot of leaves and small branches and things like that. So it's a browser.
Got it.
That's the difference. Black rhino is a little bit smaller, and I think it's kind of got small man syndrome. It's got this temperament and not really good eyesight, so very inquisitive. They'll hear really good hearing, really good sense of smell. So when we were monitoring the population, I walked basically all day tracking rhino. There was a population that I was collecting data from that had just been released into a new protected area, and I had 2 expert trackers, 2 Zulu trackers, and we would follow those rhinos and see what they had done through the night, because they're mostly nocturnal actually. So we didn't know much about black rhino and their habits and what they did. So following their footprints kind of backwards enabled us to see what they had done through the night. So we'd find them just as the sun was coming up. And then these Thomas and Zama incredible trackers would follow them backwards and see, what had they been eating, where did they sleep, where did they drink, and then I would follow along behind the guys with my GPS and the notebook and take notes. And so that's how I studied their kind of nocturnal behavior. But obviously, we would encounter them fairly often, and they would around a lot, and we'd spend quite a bit of time at the trees hiding.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that they were nocturnal. That's interesting. And then you guys also do a form of rehab. I do wildlife rehab in Texas, but we do like raccoons and rabbits and things, not rhinos. Tell us about that.
So we ourselves support a couple of orphanages. So I think kind of why are there orphanages is maybe where we should start. So another thing that your audience might be interested in is to learn a little bit about the pressure that our rhino populations are facing at the moment. Not just the African populations, but other ones, the Asian populations as well, and species. There's a high demand for rhino horn.
Right.
Rhino horn is worth a lot of money, more than per weight than gold or anything like that. So it's super valuable. All for the wrong reasons. It has no medicinal value. It's seeped in kind of history through Asian cultures, the use of rhino horn. And what we've seen through time is these kind of fads and these kind of uses of it kind of spike. So there's this kind of constant use of rhino horn over time, but we have seen these spikes, and we kind of been going through a spike since about 2007, 2008, where at the same time we were seeing a growth in the Chinese middle class and Asian middle class kind of growing, and people having more wealth, and it's kind of seen as a luxury product. So as wealth grows, so we see the demand for the rhino horn increase.
Got it.
So we've been seeing a huge increase since that time, since 2008, on rhino horn, illegal harvesting, poaching, using a lot of rhino. And obviously when poachers go into the field, they see a rhino, say it's a mother, a female, they'll kill the female, but small youngsters that haven't really, because their horns only start growing after a couple of months and into their first year, they just leave those youngsters.
Yeah.
So now we're left with a lot of orphans. So there's a couple of orphanages in South Africa. We support 2 of them. The great thing with rhino is that you can actually hand raise them to a certain age and then actually kind of rewild them fairly effectively.
Oh,
so
nice.
They can move back into the wild and therefore contribute to the gene pool again.
Nice.
Which is an important part. And I think that's something you might experience with some of the care that you have. I mean, the key is to always try and get those animals back into the wild, right?
Of course, right. And then Leia tipped $5. We're at $367.87. While people continue to donate, can you tell them what those donations help you guys with?
Sure, of course. So a number of things. So we've got a fairly holistic approach to our work on the ground. And so we've, as I said, so we started off running around after animals, spending a lot of time in the field. We've now employed we've got a whole team of people that are out there. And, as we start seeing these impacts on these species that we're following, we start realizing where those pressures are coming from. And we realize that we need to get more involved in those other areas. So anti-poaching, for example, community engagement, awareness, education, spending time with people on the other side of the protected areas that are essentially the true custodians of these protected areas in Africa, and trying to understand what their needs are and trying to understand what pressures they have and what would kind of push people into poaching, whether for bushmeat or whether for more high kind of valued products like rhino horn or ivory or pangolin or whatever the case might be. We've got a number of community projects that we work on. I think one of my favorites is we run a 4-day bush camp for children who grow up in rural areas and are just never given the opportunity to get out into these protected areas and to see wildlife through the same lens that you or myself might have been privileged enough to be able to do. So to kind of see wildlife in the wild and kind of just spend time kind of watching and seeing how wildlife is, rather than having to interact with it on a day-to-day basis, or having, for example, elephant crop raiding, or lions killing your cattle, or whatever the case is. So your lens, the way that you view them are very different than, say, how we might from a more of a tourist or an enjoyment perspective.
Yeah.
So with that camp, we try and get the children out as youngsters to try and build that emotional connection with wildlife, like we might have been given an opportunity to be able to do. And that's a real eye-opener, and it's amazing to take children out there and spend time with them as they see a giraffe for the first time, or a black rhino, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, that's super important. We talk about that on this podcast a lot, is how that piece is missing in conservation a lot, is educating the people that actually live amongst those species. So that's awesome. Hercules tipped $50 and Valerio tipped $10. Thank you. Okay, so if you don't mind, we have a lot of viewer questions that have been submitted. You want to get started on answering some of those?
Right.
All right. Sweet. Let's see. The first one, Nim asked, what is your role in the Stanford University program for conservation genomics?
Good question. I am the Associate Director of Conservation for the Program for Conservation Genomics. And essentially my role is to bring the conservationists that are working with endangered species and our genomics team at Stanford, who are developing genomic tools, to kind of think about how they develop those tools in partnership with the guys in the field, and ensure that the tools are feasible, applicable, and are answering the right questions. So I spend a lot of time talking to NGOs that are working in the field, as well as government entities that are responsible for wildlife in different areas. So we run doing a big project with snow leopard and the African lion at the moment.
Okay, very cool.
Have previously done a big project on tiger. So I ended up there because my wife's doing a PhD at Stanford. So I was in California for a couple of years, and to keep myself out of trouble, went and did some work with the team there, and I've kept that on. So even though I'm based back in Africa, I still work remotely and help with that project.
Got it. Thank you for the $15. The guy that just asked that question, Wallace with $20, and Apple with $1.
$15 question.
Yeah. And then Schmeeds with 10. A lot of people are also asking about the beeping sound. It's not a problem, but they're wondering what it is.
Bats. Fruit bats is what is the sound.
Those are bats making that sound? Or it's...
Yeah, the fruit bats.
Really? I thought it was like a monitoring device or like a transmitter or something.
No, they're bats.
Wow.
They're fruit bats.
That's crazy.
Maybe. Oh, those are... Yeah, so it's Wahlberg's epileptic fruit bat.
Oh,
Look it up.
What's it called?
Wahlberg's epileptic fruit bat. Yeah.
Chat. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I didn't spell it right, but here it is. Wow, how cool. That's so interesting. Okay. Thank you guys for asking that question.
I can't turn them down, I'm afraid.
Oh, no, that's completely fine. It's not really a bother. They were just curious. And then Lots tipped $100. Thank you so much. So we're at $573.
Saying, is there a $100 question?
No, it didn't come with a question. It was just $100. Okay, and then another question. Spiderland asks, what kind of work do volunteers do once they've joined your organization?
Oh, yeah. So we we've got a number of programs and work that we do that is what's the right word? It's good for volunteers to be to kind of get involved. So, for example, walking onto Black Rhino on foot is not a great thing for volunteers because you need the right experience, and it's best for small groups. Mm-hmm. So we don't go dragging volunteers around in the bush after dangerous animals like that. What we do is that people can join our teams, our monitoring teams that are specifically doing observational monitoring from vehicles or observational monitoring using camera traps. Mm-hmm. So people come across and spend time with our wildlife monitors who are experienced conservationists, and they're out in the field, for example, at Mkuzi Game Reserve, there's a pack of wild dogs there. The guys get up at 3:30 in the morning so that they're with those dogs as the sun rises. We've got a team, we've got VHF collars, very high frequency collars that are emitting, similar to these fruit bats actually, mm-hmm. a constant beep. Mm-hmm. And so there's a specific telemetry equipment that we use to locate those dogs, and the volunteers help us with that. They help with GPS recordings, data recordings, helping us set up camera traps, downloading the data from the camera traps, going through all the photographs to see what's been caught on the camera traps. So that's the main effort, is joining our monitor for a conservation experience and people come out for about 2 weeks at a time out into the field with us.
How neat. Okay, and then we have lots of questions about rhinos specifically. So Apple tipped $1 and said, are the grazing behaviors of the rhinos necessary to sustain the grasslands?
Very good question. Yes, they are. In fact, my wife's doing a study up in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which used to be the stronghold for the northern white rhino species that is now pretty much extinct. There's only 2 or 3 individuals left. And so you get these grazing lawns that they help maintain. Hippo do the same. So these bog grazers that go out there and kind of push and kind of create very short grass and keep it very short and big lawns that are very good for other grazers to come in on and to utilize. So they play a very important function in the system. And then the black rhinos, being browsers, are more kind of in the thickets and the bushy areas, munching on the trees.
Okay, cool. And then there are a few questions that are about the same thing, and people are asking if rhinos can live without a horn, and about the practice of altering dehorning to prevent poaching.
Yeah, so the dehorning has been actually a very effective program. Obviously you remove the prize, and off goes the poachers don't have anything to target in on. The problem is that rhino horn is like a fingernail, right? It grows from the base. You've got a base and it grows up. It's made from the same stuff. It's just keratin, and so like hair. So if you trim a rhino horn, it's going to grow.
Right.
Depending on what it's eating and how healthy it is will depend on the size of that horn and how it regrows and the rate of regrowth. But essentially, we need to trim it at least every 15 to 18 months, so a year and a half. Keep it below a level that is attractive for poachers. So unless you are able to do that, then it's not a feasible approach. And to dehorn a rhino takes a team of guys. It's a process.
I have a video playing right now of you guys with them lifted and
Yeah, so to catch a rhino is, as you can imagine, quite a process. So you need helicopter, vet, ground team. Once it's been immobilized, you've putting the rhino at risk. So that's tricky as well. So we don't like to immobilize rhino unless we really have to. So anytime you immobilize an animal, it's risky. I'm sure you've been involved in immobilizations where you need a vet or someone monitoring that animal to ensure it's breathing, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So it's quite costly. So you can imagine big populations of rhino. You would need to have helicopters flying all the time and teams of vets and quite a big expense.
to keep on top of it. But
Right.
for smaller populations, it's a very doable and feasible and effective way of keeping poachers out.
Got it.
And then just to loop back on the question was, how do they do without the horn? Females use a horn to protect their youngsters from predators, so from lion, hyena, for example. And the males use their horns to fight one another like swords. So as long as with the males, everybody's got their swords taken away, then it's fair play. And then with the females, generally the risk of poaching is greater than the predation from those predators when you're removing those horns. So it's worth removing that horn to protect it from the poachers, even though you're increasing the predation risk on the youngsters.
Right. Yep. Makes sense. Okay. And then some people have also asked about the work with artificial insemination in white rhinos.
Yeah, so there's teams looking at doing some of that work with the northern white rhino to actually recreate an embryo because they don't have sperm cells from a northern white rhino. So there's a whole lot of very clever people working in labs figuring that out and are looking at, it's the same kind of thinking with these people that are trying to recreate the mammoth, for example.
I've had them on this podcast, Revive Restore.
What do you have?
I have, yeah.
Okay, interesting. What do you think about, do you want to see mammoths on the planet? Do you think it's a worthwhile thing to be doing?
I think it's bizarre. I think I'm thrilled with their work with the black-footed ferret. They recently did the cloning of that ferret, and that was really cool to see happen. I watched a few videos and read some stuff about their wanting to reintroduce a mammoth. I don't know. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to have the guys on here. There's people going to Mars, which I think that if we took people who were spending going to Mars and the money people were spending on making mammoths and just kind of directed it, educating everybody and ourselves on what we've got and trying to protect what we've got more effectively, I think we'd be in a much more solid space to come from to be able to do those other explorations.
Right.
But at the moment where we are in ground on so many different levels, it's kind of like now we're spending billions in Mars or billions on mammoths when, we're losing the northern white rhino under our nose or, the Javan rhino, Sumatran rhino. What are we doing about that type of thing? So I kind of sit in that space thinking we need to be a little bit more about what we've got and looking after that first.
Yeah, they've made arguments about how they think it'll help restore the habitat that they're planning on releasing them on, but I think my reaction was about the same as yours when I heard about that. So another donation that came through regarding rhino horns still said, are the horns part of rhinos' sexual attraction, and would cutting them eventually result into rhinos no longer having smaller horns because there is no selection based on big horns?
So because we're removing the horns of both males that are competing with one another, it's not clear what size horns that they have. So selection's not happening based on horn size at all because we removed it completely.
Got it.
So yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that question. Let's see what other...
Good questions. We've got a very educated team of people listening in on here. This is great.
Yeah, lots of really good questions that have come in. A lot of people are also asking about how you got into conservation, how they should get into conservation. I'm currently at a university studying wildlife media, and I'm really wanting to get into conservation and animal charity work. What is the best way to get into working in this world?
For everything, you need a little bit of experience. So you need to kind of get out there somewhere or another. And that's always the hard part, is trying to spend time in the field and finding those opportunities. And that's why I really like our kind of volunteer opportunities, because people can actually come out and spend time and just get to experience that kind of work and see if it's something that they really want to do. And then, once you've got a little bit of experience under your belt, it's a little bit easier to try and land your first entry position somewhere. But I always think it's important to do those internships, spend that time out there, and really understand what it is and what element within the conservation space you want to go into. At the end of the day, I think, like myself, I'm a biologist, ecologist, but I wish I'd got more social skills, for example, and understanding, because that's where a lot of our stresses are coming from, is from humans, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as ecologists, we don't always understand humans very well. So trying to think about how do we reduce the demand for rhino horn products, for example. So we actually need to kind of lean on sociologists to help inform that.
Right.
And then the decision makers are all politicians, right? And so getting a bit of background within that space and inform policy and kind of steer it in the right direction. So you don't have to be an ecologist to be a conservationist. You can be a politician, conservationist, and probably have a greater impact as a politician in the conservation space than what you can do running around after rhinos. So, yeah.
That is fantastic advice. I love that. I try to tell people that you guys can do whatever you love doing and still contribute. I have a graphic artist and a couple video editors on my personal production team, and they just recently helped create merch for the Diane Fossey Fund to sell, like t-shirts, and they made a few videos for them as well. So they're not at all biologists, or in the field, but they did make a big difference there. So that's very cool. Cool. Go ahead.
There's a student who designed Ivory Ella. I don't know if you've seen Ivory
I
Ella's
have.
T-shirt.
Yep.
And he's one of the biggest fundraisers for the Elephant Fund, and just because he came up with a cool kind of logo and mechanism. So, there's just so many different ways of being involved. Use your skills, people.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I think one big thing, Maya, is just, people underestimate the value of travel and spending time and valuing these animals by talking about them, going to go and see them. And, we're really suffering through COVID with the lack of tourism, because most of the conservation organizations, protected areas are funded and underpinned through tourism, right? Especially in Africa. So we've lost a lot of ground, unfortunately, within that space. So, big call out there just to say, as soon as you're able and willing, travel, go and see animals, because that gives them value.
Yeah, very cool. And then Connor asked what kind of trackers you guys are using. That also reminds me, Connor is a friend of mine who does birds of prey, so we should also talk about vultures before we close up here.
Okay. So Connor, maybe you thinking of like trackers, like track not just the ground, but tracking like the collars and the like. So on the vultures, we've got these nifty little, we call them backpacks. Have you used them at all, Maya, in tracking birds?
I fly my bird with telemetry with the backpack on.
Yeah, so it's got it's got a little solar panel on there, and we use it communicates to satellite via directly, or whether it communicates to us with a GSM, so using cell phone technology to send locations. So everything from just normal VHF right through to satellite technologies in terms of tracking devices. But very effective is just local skills and local knowledge in terms of tracking and following animals on their foot. Because at the end of the day, the trails and the tracks that they leave behind and the sign that they leave behind is very informative. And then we don't have to touch the animals. They can just keep on being wild, and we can gather information non-invasively, which is what we always try and steer towards. So we try and do that before we think about having to put on a tracking device onto an animal, because you always put them under risk, as I mentioned earlier, when you mobilize them.
Yeah, very cool. And then, so what is the work that you guys are doing with vultures out there?
So the vultures have a number of different pressures on them, and in our region, it's the harvesting of vulture body parts for medicinal uses, for traditional medicines or traditional uses. So what happens is that a carcass from a wild animal is put out, or a livestock carcass, and laced with poison. The vultures come in and are poisoned And unfortunately, we lose a lot of birds like that and other animals that might come feed on that carcass. And the poachers come harvest body parts, normally the heads, wings and things like that, sometimes whole birds. So the work that we're doing has been tracking and trying to understand where these threats are occurring. Much about vultures, so just understanding the general ecology, super important before you can protect anything. Recently, we've started a program trying to understand the traditional uses so that we can work with the traditional healers and think about, are there alternatives? How can we think about a sustainable future that ensures that there's still vulture populations? Because at the moment, what we're seeing in our region is almost annihilation of vultures. So we've already lost one or two species that aren't breeding anymore in the space, which is super sad. And as the kind of nature's cleanup crew and helping kind of control diseases and zoonosis transmission, I think we've all learned a lot through this pandemic about wildlife trade and the transmission of disease. And here we've got a species that's critical in terms of helping us control those threats against the human population. So wiping them out is hugely problematic for a number of different reasons when they provide us such a great service. So we're going to try and get them back on track.
Cool. I have a video playing right now that's showing that solar tracker that you're putting on the backs of the vultures. How many? The video doesn't have sound, by the way, so they can hear both of us fine.
Cool.
How many? Do you know how many species of vultures you guys have out there?
So we're working with four different species, but I think there's about 7. I'm not the vulture. I'm the rhino guy. Remember?
Right, of course.
There's about 9 across the continent.
Okay.
But globally, vultures are all under pressure and threatened. Habitat loss is from a number of different things. I mean, India lost 98% of their vulture population, and it's cost them billions in terms of health costs and in rabies and different things that have happened following the loss of those vultures. And we're starting to see a similar thing in Africa. So vultures, super important.
Very one of the most misunderstood species or animals out there. It's a vulture.
We need it. Everyone thinks of them as like the ugly guys or whatever. I think they got a bad rap from Disney. And I think they could do with a bit of support given the amount of support that they give us.
I agree. Corky tipped $5. There have been a few other donations that have come through. We're at $586.83 here. And we have time for a few more questions. One of them I don't think has been asked before on the podcast, and it's a really cool question. Vegan asked, you can ask one question to an animal of your choice. What would it be? It's a hard question, but it's kind of cool.
I'm going to ask it straight back at you. What would yours be? Gives me time to think about it.
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that yet. That's something I'd have to think about. I mean, I have an initial answer, but I don't know if it's like my definite answer.
Yeah, that's a really tricky one. There's just so much to ask, and so many different animals out there that could tell us so much about so many different things. I'd have to think about that. That's too good a question to just respond to quickly.
Yeah, that's a cool one though. My initial answer to that is we have 4 parrots for my nonprofit here. We have an exotic animal sanctuary and education center, virtual education center. And I would like to know how much they understand or how much language they understand, because they babble so much and their vocabulary is super impressive. They'll say hello when you walk into the room, but it's like how much is just making noise and how much is they're really trying to comprehend more, or understand more. It's really hard to figure out sometimes. That's my first answer.
How much of that communication is audible, are they understanding versus they interpreting something?
Yeah.
Or your other behaviors or whatever, and how much of it's actually language type of thing. That would be interesting for sure.
Yeah, driver tip 20.
I'd have a lot to ask whales. I don't know why, just because they just seem like super intelligent things that have been around a long time. A lot to ask elephant, a lot to ask rhino about why they chase me up trees.
Which is why. Yeah.
Lots of whys and lots of outcomes. Yeah.
Yeah. I once had I interned at a parrot sanctuary over the summer in San Diego, California. And I had a parrot one time who didn't want to be taken outside. I said, "Do you want to go outside?" He said no, which is pretty typical. Like, he'll say that every day, so that's like to be expected. And I was like, "Why don't you want to go outside?" Not expecting anything. And he said, "Because it's cold out there." And I was like, "That's bizarre." Like, that is a sequence of things. And
that's a proper answer.
Yeah.
It's cold out there, man. What are you thinking?
I haven't stopped thinking about that interaction for a while. So anyway, okay, very cool question. So the question that I usually end the podcast with, we've kind of already touched on, and that is, if they're not biologists and if they're not in the field and they're not able to go out there and volunteer, what is the best way that you think the people that are watching today can support the conservation of the species that you guys work with?
Just talking about it. Knowledge is everything. Awareness, understanding what pressures are being applied onto our wildlife populations and how fast we're losing them rapidly. And so get out there and see them before we lose them. And the more you get out and see them, the less of a chance there is that we're going to lose them, strangely enough. So, that would be my suggestion. But just talk about it and learn as much as you can. We're losing ground fast.
Got it. It would be very cool to come out there. I do want to go to South Africa at some point. Are you familiar with Our Wild Earth?
Well, you're welcome anytime. We've got lots of teams in the field and would love to host you.
That would be very cool.
Yeah. Get your jabs and come out.
Yeah. I'm fully vaccinated. But Our Wild Earth does some really cool filming over there. I think they're in.
Yep.
Are they in Kruger? Chad, I don't remember where exactly they're located.
They film across a couple of different. I was actually in a reserve the other day and had them filming.
There you go.
Yeah. So,
well, we can knock them both out.
We see them out there. So come out and see what they're up to, and we'll show you the behind the scenes side of conservation and what happens and what it's all about.
That would be awesome. And they would love, the people watching and other viewers would love to see some of that stuff too. That's great.
Cool.
Thank you.
Everybody's welcome.
There you go.
Go to the website and have a look at it and understand it. And we trying to do a lot of work with Stanford and trying to push those genomic tools and things like that. So trying to become more hands-off as much as possible, but that still requires kind of picking up poop. The poops are gold mines of DNA and information from animals, and it's non-invasive way of kind of monitoring and looking after them. Always need help doing those types of fun things and being out in the bush.
There you go, Chad. You can pick up poop, but poop that you've never seen before, which is cool.
Bring your poop scoop.
Yeah, there you go.
Pick up little gold mines of information.
Nice. Meta tip $5. We're at $611 here. Also, somebody recommended that when rhinos chase you up trees, you try Simon Says to tell them to not do that.
I have tried that once before, and I told it to put its hands on its head, and if it could have spoken to me, it would have told me to politely F off because it doesn't have a hand.
Right.
So,
that's worth a shot, I guess. Can't hurt trying.
Good idea, Simon Says. Yeah. The interesting thing is I don't have to say the Simon Says part. I just say, right?
Oh, there you go. Loophole. Okay. Well, thank you for the suggestion, Corey. I appreciate that. Okay, so I will send you an email with the final amount of donations, and then I'll send these over after the podcast, but that'll pretty much do it. Here, do you have anything else that you want to talk about or share?
Well, thanks everyone for the support. Thanks for getting on there, listening. Thanks for the invite. I really just encourage people to get out into wild spaces because that's what's going to save them. It's just our interest and our being out there. I can't say it enough. And they really need you right now because we've been shut down for so long. So please travel, and go and see as much as you can.
Absolutely. All right. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. I will be in contact via email.
Cool. Appreciate it. Cheers.
All right. Have a good night.
Bye. You too.
All right. That went by quick, didn't it? 3:56. I guess we ended a couple minutes early here. Why rushing? Well, I'm not really rushing. I mean, it's 3:56 and it's an hour-long podcast, but I don't know, it felt like it was closing up. So we closed it up. No tech issues. Man, there were so many more tech issues in that test call than what showed up today. We were super lucky. That went really well. $611.83. Thank you so much. If you'd like to, you can continue donating while we finish up this podcast. Again, donations are going into my PayPal because they don't have a PayPal set up, but they will be directed to Wildlife Act right after the podcast is over. Thank you for the $1. And thank you for all your questions. Really, really good questions today. I'm sorry that I didn't answer all of them, obviously, but really good questions. I appreciate them. No more beeping. I know. I didn't really mind it. Maybe it's because I'm used to my telemetry, but good stuff. All right. We have a quiz to participate in. Can't believe that was just bats. Didn't it sound so mechanical? I would not have guessed that those were bats either. That's nuts. And on perfect timing. Yeah, it's bizarre. Okay, so the way that the quiz works. Chat. 5 questions. 20 seconds per question. You win the quiz by getting as many answers right as fast as you can. So you have to click fast and you have to click correctly. If you win the quiz, if you're already subbed to my channel, you can ask me to gift you a sub to any channel on Twitch, or ask me to donate an additional $5 to Wildlife Act today. If you are not subbed to my channel, you'll get gifted a sub from me. So, is Google allowed for these questions? Absolutely, but you won't win if you have to Google answers. But you're welcome to Google answers if you just want to get them right for yourself. It's just, you won't win because people click fast for this, okay? Thank you for the Twitch Prime. Thank you for the subs throughout the podcast as well. Let's see how fast we can make a quiz, because now we're just importing CSVs instead of me manually typing in everything. Do. Bop. Mercury, thank you for the 5. All right, points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions, 20 seconds per question. Import questions. Upload your CSV. Here we go. Quiz number 62. Holy moly. All right. Are you ready, chat? No. Well, too bad, because we're starting the quiz. The first, I will try to read the questions before you see them, just so you have a little bit of time there. The first question is, how long ago was the Wildlife Act Fund started? It's at the very beginning of the podcast that Simon talked about that. Oh no, an ad! Wait, we'll wait for the ads. Hold on. We'll wait for the ads. That's bad timing. That's my bad. We usually end it this time, and then I can't figure out how to do the quiz. It'll just pop up on your screen if all works as it's meant to. Here's very nice. That was cool. I need to go to South Africa. To meet him and to work with Wildlife Act, and then to meet up with Our Wild Earth. And then I need to go to the East Coast to do whale watching with whale and dolphin conservation. because I'm still talking to them. I still like email this. We have an email chain that's so long. Like since the podcast for whale and dolphin conservation, do you guys remember that? I don't even know what number it was. It was a long time ago. I've been emailing them about like setting up a trip and whatever, and I've been plugging petitions for them and whatever. And then I need to go back to Belize to work with trees, that research station, and the research island as well, because that island, the research island, is going to be underwater within 50 years. So I'd like to go as many times as I can because of sea level rise. Isn't that crazy? That's some like serious ironic stuff. It's a research island for conservation. It's going to be underwater within the next 50 years. Yo, with the $20, thank you so much. Are you doing a fundraising stream like your last 2 birthdays? Okay, should we talk about this while we're waiting? The ad's probably over. Let's just talk about it right now. I should. I realize that I should, but I just don't have plans for it. I don't know what to do. Because normally I stream at 11 a.m. on Mondays, and it's Cringe in the Kitchen. I'm going to be honest, I like Cringe in the Kitchen, but I'm not going to do a Cringe in the Kitchen on my birthday. And then Schooled starts at 2. And then after that, Miz and I are doing stuff for the rest of the day. So it would have to be in the morning, and nobody would be awake except for me. Which doesn't sound like very much fun. Alveus. I mean, I could just go to... Hello? I could just go to Alveus, but I don't really want to do that either. Go Unschooled. That sounds like the worst. Not because it's a bad show. The show is fantastic, but I will never go Unschooled. I cannot afford to look that dumb. I just can't. All right, we're starting the game. The first question again. How long ago was the Wildlife Act Fund started? Quiz time. Was it 8 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, or 13 years ago? So you're not doing anything? I don't have anything planned. I don't know. The correct answer is 13 years ago. I see easy. I see no's. I see an oh no. 13 years ago, 65 people got that correct. Well done. The majority of the people that answered anyway. The second question is, which rhino species does the Wildlife Act focus on protecting? Is it the Indian rhino, the Sumatran rhino, the black rhino, or the Javan rhino? He said it once, but I think I was saying it wrong. I forgot to show the results. I'm sorry. I will do it again. A lot of people saying easy clap. Ronith needs help. Can anybody please share their notes with Ronith? The correct answer is black rhino. Oh, Ronith, it's not looking good, man. You're on your own. Nice. That was easy. Okay. 142 people got that correct. Who got it correct the fastest? Would you ever shave your head again? No, I don't think so. I think that ship has sailed. I don't think I need to do that again. All right, don't worry about these. Don't worry about these numbers. They'll probably show up at the end of the quiz. Stealthy is in first. Spinning Squid is in second. But Sir Luxa got that question right the fastest. Besides these contestant numbers who may have done it correctly, we will see at the end. The quiz is kind of scuffed. Okay, next question. How do black rhinos get food? This is a difference we talked about in the beginning between black and white rhinos. Are they grazers? Do they hunt in packs? Do they produce their own food? Or do they forage? Tough question. We talked about the difference between their mouths, between a black rhino and a white rhino. Saying the answer in chat will do nothing. That's not how you participate in the quiz, unfortunately. I'm sorry, you have to click on the screen, but you're wrong. Anyway, because the Because the correct, unless you're trying to throw them off, the correct answer is foraging. So white rhinos are the grazers because they have more of a flat mouth, and then black rhinos are foragers because they have almost like a prehensile lip and they can grab browse. So 118 people thought it was grazing. That's tough. That is tough. 68 people got it right. Leia got that right the fastest. Well done. Then Loco, then Sneak. Spinning Squid is in the lead, followed by Stealthy. Oh my god, it's happening again. All right, 2 more questions. What type of sleep schedule do black rhinos have? Are they diurnal? Are they nocturnal? Are they crepuscular? Or are they degens? This answer surprised me. Corky 100% guess. That's fine. It's okay, Courtney. Squid's probably going to win anyway. Let's be honest. You don't know what these words mean. Nocturnal is awake at night. Diurnal is awake during the day. Crepuscular is awake at dusk and dawn. And degen, you guys know what that means. 90 people got it right. They are, wow. They are nocturnal, which is very surprising. I learned that today, along with a lot of you learning that right now, because a lot of you said that they were diurnal. Carmel got it right fastest, then Ranjan, then Leah. She might be climbing. Nope, Squid's still at the top. Squid, then Stealthy, then Leah. All right. Leia. Sorry, I don't really know how to say her name. Last question. Is someone going to pull ahead of Squid? Why are rhinos poached? What is the main reason rhinos are poached? Is it game hunting? Is it to protect their crops? Is it for food, for meat? Or is it for traditional Asian medicine? That's kind of a tough, that multiple choice is a little tough. Because if I was a teacher, I kind of would accept 2 of these answers. But the correct answer here is traditional Asian medicine. All right, most of you got that correct. Misclick, redo the quiz. Oh, okay. Sherlock, misclicked. All for redoing the whole quiz. All right. Leia in the lead. Nice. Pulled ahead of Squid. Squid, how's it feel? He said no. All right. What do you want? You want to sub somewhere? I think you're subbed. Maybe you're not subbed. Are they subbed? For once, I make it to a conservation cast and I win. Okay, they are subbed. So would you like a sub to another channel, or you want me to add another $5 to Wildlife Fact Today? Add 5. Okay. Is Locke, are you here? I don't know if Space can do that or not. I know that Locke can. Because it's going into my my PayPal, so if you could just add it to the dono bar, yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much. All right. Chat. Episode 62? 62 of the Conservation Cast! Jeez. I realized that we went live an hour later today. I also realized that these are now done once a month. So there are a couple reasons why viewership was a little bit different today. But cool thing about this podcast is prior to streaming, this is exactly what I was doing, except I was doing it in classrooms. So getting to do a classroom of like 30 kids as opposed to 20 was a huge deal, right? So having over 1,000 people to talk to is incredible, regardless of what average viewership is for my channel or for this podcast. It's also really important to me to give a platform to people like that are doing really good work that's beyond me, right? That are in freaking Botswana, like on the ground studying these things, because they don't often have a platform like this to talk to a demographic like you. So if you're here, thank you so much for being here. It means a lot. And I really, really enjoy meeting these people, and I love raising money for other conservation causes. And I love this podcast. I'm glad that we didn't drop it. I'm glad that we're still doing it. $642.83 today. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your donations. I'm going to send those right over to the Wildlife Act. And I am going to host somebody. I'll go ahead and host Simply here. Oh, raid Simply. The platform twitch.tv is an untapped reservoir for doing good. I appreciate you guys being here. I will see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. CT for Knockout City. And you guys can play with me, which is actually really fun, because that game was fun. It's the, like, dodgeball one. You know what I'm talking about? Do you remember? I played with Matt and S-Fand. It's a fun game. So I'll see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. CT for that game. And yeah, I'll see you then. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Schedule, when's the next stream? No Housewives tomorrow, because the next Housewives is going to be in person. But I don't know. Imagine using CT time. It's 11 a.m. PST. I'm not going to, like, what? I live here. I'll see you tomorrow, and then I'll talk to you more about the schedule for the rest of the week. Bye.
You guys are amazing.
Twitch is an untapped reservoir for doing good. This is those of you who donate, thank you so much. It means the world to me, and it means the world to those guests. It's still really important that you're here and that you're watching, and that's amazing.